Here we go. What's up, Homestead homies? It's Off Grid with Doug and Stacy, and I'm Doug. Today we're going to do part 2 of our Field Trip Friday. Again, we want to try to keep these Field Trip Friday videos to about 20, 25, maybe even 30 minutes. Let us know down in the comments down below, like a good time frame for you. Like, do you like 15-minute ones, 20-minute ones? But some of these, I'm just warning you guys up front, are going to be chock full of information, and it's hard to compress all that information into just 10 or 15 or 20 minutes. So our goal is about 25, 30 minutes. This one ran a little bit over. This is part 2. So if you missed part 1, I'm going to link it right here. Go check it out, maybe even before you watch this one, so you can get caught up to speed. And we're going to continue on with this one where we're showing you guys some 100, 200-year-old homes in our area made out of logs, log homes. And then towards the end of this video, you're going to see the main home that we came to see, the reason why this little community was even brought together for you guys to glean from. And hopefully you enjoy this video as well. So we'll see you at the end of the video.
Alright, so this here is the stocky house behind us, and as you all probably know, a house during this time period was not just a place to eat and sleep, it was a place to work, and there was a lot going on. So they wouldn't just have a house. Instead of having a large house with everything in it, they usually have a smaller house, but then have other buildings on their property. And so we have here not only the house, but we also have a detached kitchen, so you're not heating up your house in the summer when you're cooking. We also, behind it, you can't quite see it, but there's a smokehouse and shed there. Of course, there's outhouse, you don't have a bathroom inside, and you also have a chicken coop, which is a smaller building over here.
Oh, it's so cute, it matches all the other stuff.
And then we have a barn, of course, where you could have livestock, such as, you know, pigs or horses or chickens. And we've had that in the past, we just don't currently, kind of fixing it up a little bit at the moment. But a setup like this would be typical of most homesteads.
A homestead, sure.
Where you have a lot of things going on.
Yeah, everything has its delegated place, things that you need for your chickens and your livestock.
Yeah.
The kitchen's really nice. I think my husband needs to make me a 2-story one like that one. I like that.
And that wouldn't be as typical. You usually just have a 1-story detached kitchen, but that is the case here. The stocky house is from the 1820s or 30s. It's kind of built in 2 stages, and it was only 1/4 of a mile from here. They actually took it over here as one piece, so it hasn't been taken apart. It's the original building.
Wow. It's gorgeous. We go inside?
Sure, we can go inside with some of them.
Let's go.
So you can come this way here. We have several things in this area. Of course, the smokehouse is the brick part here, where you'd want to preserve your meats. You don't have refrigerators and things like that. And over here we have the detached kitchen, where you keep all of the cooking away from the house, especially during the summer. That would come in handy. Of course, it's pretty nice out today.
Oh, yeah, how cool it is in here.
Here, I'll open another door for some more light.
Table.
I mean, just look at the fireplace girth. Look how big that is.
Look at
Yeah, and some fireplaces were even larger, or at least wider. But you have the arm to bring around.
Good for easy cleaning. Yeah.
Have the oven where you could face the fire there and toast your cook your chicken.
Lift that open.
Here, I can flip that around. See on the inside.
Oh,
Yeah, like the original rotisserie.
Yeah, there you go.
Have our Dutch ovens. The things that still work today. I mean, sure,
Yeah, look at this one.
many people use them, but it's been used for a long time.
Yeah, one of the problems, and what a nice thing about the wood cook stove is that a lot of the heat in the wintertime would be sucked up out of here because of the large opening of the fires.
Right. Water dispenser?
Yes.
Yeah, there's the original Berkey.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So would it be kept there because it wanted to be hot water?
It could, at least theoretically. I'm not sure that it actually heats.
Is that an actual thing?
But if there's a you know, there's several ovens through here as well.
Right.
If those were going as well, it certainly would be hot
Yeah,
there.
they need to have hot
to
water.
keep it as hot water.
And then how about the wood doors here? What do we have here?
That goes to where you would keep something cooler. It generally stays pretty cool there. Have rock slabs. And
Right.
So it's
you
like
could-
Like a little refrigerator.
Kind of. It wouldn't be that cold, but
Right.
at least if you wanted something to cool down and get it out of the way, out of the
Right,
pies.
like the
things
pies.
that.
So
Right.
they don't
Yeah.
get stolen by the kids off the windowsill. I love it. So hopefully you guys are seeing a reoccurring theme here as we guys watched us set up our homestead. Like what we're trying to show you guys is we set up our homestead that you guys can glean from and get some information from. We've set up our main living quarters and we have a wood cook stove. Then we have the summer kitchen where we'll be cooking out there most of the time. It's a place for people to gather and eat, and we'll bring in our harvest and cook and enjoy each other's company there. A large seating area. Also, we have our outbuildings, you know, exactly like they did 200 years ago. So when you guys are building your place, you know, a bigger house where you can accommodate all this isn't necessarily the goal.
No.
The goal is to be inside as least as possible, and then you have these other buildings that you can utilize when it gets too hot. Most of you guys probably aren't going to live to the extreme that we do without any solar panels or electricity or things to that nature. But as we live our pioneer life in the 21st century, it just is kind of reassuring that the things that we're doing now are tried and true, and they are working for us on our
Oh, and I
homestead.
love coming here because we get so many ideas. I mean, I'm looking around at little things here and there, and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Really, that's a neat idea. And so it's really helping me getting a couple more ideas for you that you can do later on.
Yeah, and another misconception I think that people have is that back in the day, there would be like a couple here, or, you know, 2 or 3 people. It took quite a few people. That's why they had large families. You know, even like today, the Amish have 12, 10, 15 kids. But that was the mentality behind it, is that you're producing, it's not slave labor. And I know some people leave crazy comments, but it's just family labor to bring about the legacy so you can have like a century farm, right? We talked about that earlier in this video, of farms that are lasting 100+ years because the family stays there. They work together and they make spoils from the land and they feed themselves from the land.
And it's also a community. I mean, everybody worked together. If somebody needed help, then other people would come around in the community and help them and then get the job done.
Right.
So just like there's a huge picnic table out here, I mean,
Right.
you needed to feed a lot of people. People will come, you know, that
Yeah.
saying, I will work for food, that's what they did.
That's right, and everyone would pull together. So when one person was harvesting one thing, maybe the next neighbor didn't have that same thing planted, and then they would alternate and work down the street or the community, and they would help each other harvest their things. The same way community is being run in many places in our
Like
country
you guys are
today.
doing now, right?
Yeah.
With our bartering, everyone's doing, so
Right.
and we love it.
So hopefully you guys are enjoying this video. Now we're going to go to the mainstay of this whole property.
Where we are.
We're going to give you guys some aerial views right now, and then we're going to go and we're going to talk about this community, how it was brought together, and the main draw, if you will, to why this property is here. And they've recreated basically a village or set up the best they can to the early 1800s.
Yeah, let's go see it.
So the next building on our tour, I mean, I hope you guys are liking this as much as I am and Stacy is. We're
Yeah,
really enjoying
so
these older
neat.
buildings. And it's also good for us to see that the work that we put into our log home could actually like last for generations. I mean, when you think about that, you know, some of the houses that are built nowadays, they have like the vinyl siding, and basically you can go and punch a hole through the side of a house and be inside in minutes.
You'd hurt yourself if you punched a hole in the side of ours.
Yeah, it won't do, but it's just good to see that this quality craftsmanship has withstood the test of time. I mean, I love that. So actually what we're standing in front of now is...
It's the Carpenters House. Does anyone need a job? It says Carpenter's Apprentice, apply
Yeah.
within, so let's go.
So we're gonna go inside of here. We're gonna see, I think they've managed to collect a bunch of tools from the 1800s, and we're gonna see what they have inside of here, and hopefully you
Yeah.
guys are enjoying this tour. So let's go to this building here and see what's
And
inside.
they still work.
So this is the carpenter shop from Flint Hill, Missouri. Was brought here. It was built in the 1830s. So this would be the workshop area here. The stairs are over there around the corner, and they would sleep upstairs. So as for a lot of people during this time period, commute to work would be all the way downstairs. And so you have a number of tools at the time period, some of which would be common for anybody that lived especially on the frontier, but some that are more unique to a carpenter. We have the lathe over here on the side. It's a foot-powered lathe. They still knew how to put together machinery, even though they didn't have the later energy, you know, that would like steam power or coal power. In this case, you wouldn't need a gym membership. You know, you just keep it up there with your foot, spinning it there and using different tools to cut a piece. This is one that we were working on earlier, but you can really come out with a piece. You would be hard to come about any other way.
Yeah.
So it's actually a functional lathe right now?
Yes, yeah. It still works. And in fact, I think this piece might be a reproduction.
Sure.
But it would be the
but it's the same
type
principle,
that you use.
right?
Yeah. We have the shaving horse that you'd use to carve all sorts of things with the draw knife. Then we also have a number of tools back here. This is one that's a little more unique. It's not just an axe. The handle's bent on purpose. The blade is long and straight, and it's really more sharpened on one side, more flat on the other, because this would be used to hew the log as it's sitting on the ground there, cutting with it this way. Keep that blade straight up and down, and yet not hitting your leg. Be able to work with it down the tree. So it'd be very important for building houses and the like when you're hewing the logs.
So the pile of sticks you have there, would that represent like your axe handles? And
yeah, this is just wood to work with, so you could be making axe handles, but a lot of other things too. Anything that would need to be long and straight. But yeah, especially handles. A lot of people made their own handles to custom fit themselves. We also have a more unique tool right over here. This is an antique tool from the time. And this is a froe.
yeah, we use that.
Yeah, and be able to use to make shingles, things like that. Draw it into a block of wood.
Good for timber framing.
Uh-huh. And of course our power drills.
No electricity required, right?
No.
And
Correct.
again, it's no bolts, nails, or screws. It's basically like a timber frame, knots and pins.
A lot of wood on wood. Even though they had nails, it's not like those weren't invented.
Right.
And usually you could get them at the general store. We have some of them over here. But in a lot of cases, they just preferred to use wood on wood. Especially for certain things that would hold together easier, would have less wear. You wouldn't worry about it rusting. It would contract and expand with the weather. So they would prefer that in many cases. So this is the Schoolhouse from 1837 to 1940. So it was used over 100 years. Generations of children growing up in a schoolhouse like this. Now it doesn't look very big on the outside, and it still doesn't look all that big on the inside, but a little larger. But generations of children would have been brought up in this schoolhouse.
Sure. Yeah, from what, first grade all the way on up?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, all the way all up didn't mean as much as it did today.
Right,
but
8th grade or so?
Probably something like that. Get started out with your horn book, learning your letters, but they would progress to things a lot more complicated than that. Schooling was anything but standardized. It was all sorts of ways that it could be organized to begin with, whether it was the pastor in town or a community organization or simply a school teacher comes up and sets up a school. First public schools really coming in the 1800s and taking a while to develop to the system that a lot of people are familiar with today. But schooling, you might even only go for a couple of years. Sometimes people didn't go the full amount. You usually just got what you thought necessary and would be supplemented a lot with what you learned at home or from relatives or other people in the area.
Yeah, because I mean your hands were needed more in the fields and working on the family homestead than necessarily the book smarts, as long as you could do basic stuff.
Right, well, and one example of this area would be Lewis Howell, was one of the first school teachers in the area. He was born in 1800 and he lived out here on the frontier, went to a small subscription school for a few years. He studied under an individual during the War of 1812. He had to work around the house because all the men went off to war.
Right.
But then he studied with one man who became sheriff, so he became deputy sheriff at the age of 17, just learning alongside. He went to a little military school, learned Latin from someone who lived nearby. He did a little bit of everything and started teaching school when he was 21. Took a few years off to look into medicine. but decided that wasn't for him, so he taught school then for a number of decades up to his 70s. But very typical of frontier education and early American education in general, had the freedom to look into what he wanted, was very flexible, not standardized, and ended up being the one who would teach generations of children and really started our current school district, which was named after his brother who donated money for the high school later on.
Sure. Yeah, this is great.
All right.
All right, let's go on to the big house.
And now you guys are seeing the main reason why we're here. This whole facility. That's a four-story house behind us. And Peter is going to tell you guys who actually lived here.
So this is known as the Daniel Boone home. And this is one of the few houses that Daniel Boone lived in that still survives today. And it was owned by his son Nathan. And Daniel Boone, at the time when he came out to Missouri, he was 65 years of age. And yet he was still wanting to go to the next frontier. He had been in Kentucky, had been in North Carolina, been in Pennsylvania, been in West Virginia, been across a lot of the country. But he comes out here, yeah. And he, at this time, was Spanish territory. They were giving out big grants of land for free or close to it. And they got this 680 acres of land. And
we were born
came
at
out
the
to
wrong
this
time.
area. Yeah, it was a good deal for Daniel Boone. He was able to start afresh and to hunt and to trap and to explore. And with his son and actually a number of his grown children at this point who moved out here as well in this Osage Valley that we're in today near Defiance, Missouri. And they eventually constructed this house, not right away, but as they have time to build up resources, start out in log cabins. Certainly much nicer than most people think when they come out to see Daniel Boone's home.
Yeah.
And that's like a lot of our people that are doing kind of the same thing we are.
Yeah, we start off in RVs, tents,
right, and then they build into their home.
Yeah. And so, you know, this is probably the result of a lot of hard work, beaver trapping, farming on the property, other investments and activities they do, land surveying, salt making,
guiding,
milling, guiding, yeah, trail blazing. They actually, Nathan Boone helps out William Clark build Fort Osage and get out there in 1808. So there's a lot of activity during these early years. You have the War of 1812 just a mile down the road. There was a conflict during that time. So you have a lot of history right here.
I think a lot of people fail to realize that St. Louis was the biggest city west of the Mississippi, and it was a huge port for trade, for travel, the river, all this riverboat activity with the paddle wheels. This was just a big time area, and then we actually lost that foot race to the Chicago area sometime I think around the World's Fair time.
Well, and yeah, St. Louis was kind of at a peak at that point, but eventually I think the railroads and other things, the traffic eventually got diverted.
Right.
Now Daniel Boone got to see St. Louis start to rise, because when he came out it was 1,000 people living there, mostly French settlers.
Right.
By the time he left, 1820, moving towards statehood, was totally different. Within a few decades, by 1870 it would have about its current population. Would go back up and go back down, but would be the 4th largest city in the U.S. by 1870.
And a little known fact about moi is that our last name, Stacy and mine, is of French descent. So there you go. Settlers were coming in, results of immigrants, and now we're telling you the story. So we're going to go inside, check out the Daniel Boone house a little bit, and then wrap this thing up. Daniel Boone was a man, as the song goes, and Daniel Boone is especially known as someone who was a trailblazer, who would bring people out to new lands, and even in his older years, he kept going on long hunts, would go for months at a time, hunting and trapping, exploring. And then in this, it would be the drawing room or the parlor that we're in right now, and this would be maybe where he tells some of those stories, whether they were stories about his time in Kentucky or even some of his more recent adventures. There was a time he fell through the ice on the Missouri River when he was 70 years of age, was able to recover, come back home for Christmas, kept hunting and trapping, and lived for 15 years after that incident. So he continued to hunt and trap
He even is said to have volunteered to serve in the War of 1812, though he was in his late 70s. They turned him back, let him go back home. He helped out with a fort nearby, but even in the last couple of years, in 1816, he made it to the border of Nebraska. And he was in his early 80s at that point. So a man who was very resilient, had a relentless desire to continue to explore the frontier. Had his last hunt in 1817, got very sick, was close to death. News came back here to the house. They got things ready. They even got a coffin ready for him. The news heard about it. They started reporting about how Daniel Boone has been found dead on his hunting trip with his rifle leaned up against a tree, but it was false. Daniel Boone had gotten better. He came back here to the house. They say he even found that coffin waiting for him and was a bit disappointed with its quality. You know, even though he could rough it and tough it, he did have an eye to quality. He didn't wear a coonskin cap. He thought them a bit uncouth, according to his son. You know, he probably appreciated the finer craftsmanship of this house. And so when it came to his coffin too, he wanted a better one out of cherry or black walnut and stored that here in the house the last couple of years. But those last couple of years, 1817 to 1820, when this house was certainly built, at least by that time, you probably find him here with his grandchildren telling stories and enjoying a little bit of the fruit of his labors after many hard years of work and exploration that he had engaged in throughout his life.
And he lived here with his son.
Yeah, so this property and the house was owned by his son Nathan. We could call the Nathan Boone home as well. But Daniel Boone would make it his home. He would live here for the majority of the 20 years that he lived out here in Missouri. And that's saying a lot for a guy who didn't stay in any one place for all that long.
Right, he was a traveling man.
Yes. So this is where Daniel Boone died, was in this room. It was not at the Alamo, we like to say. That was Davy Crockett, other guy played by Fess Parker. But instead, it was in this room, not on a hunting trip, not in battle. Instead, they say from his eating too many sweet potatoes. Now, it's maybe a little hard to know the medical connection there, but that's the way the story will be told. Really, he has been sick on and off up till that point. He had gotten back here to the house after being to a doctor's closer into town. Had gotten better, was ready to see the grandchildren, what they'd done on the farm, and his grandchildren fixed him up food like sweet potatoes and buttermilk and nuts and cakes, and maybe ate too much. We do know he got sick the next day and died a week or two later in his bed, surrounded by family. He was 85 years of age, almost 86, September of 1820.
Alright, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. We just did a whole full tour of the Daniel Boone house here in Missouri. If people wanted to come and take a tour, if they lived in the area, how would they do it?
Well, every day we have tours that go out the top of the hour. On Sunday we open a little later, but first tour of the day is at 9 o'clock. The last one is at 4 o'clock. And there's regular tours that go through the home. There's another one that goes through the village. It's included in the same price. It's free to walk around on the outside of the buildings, but the only way to get inside is with a guided tour. But we spend about an hour going through the Boone home, a lot more than we've had time to get into today, and about an hour through other buildings in the village as well. And then we also have a lot of other special events, sometimes artisans that have a craft going on, things like that. Our Christmas candlelight tours is pretty popular.
Crystal candle. We've done the candlelight tour, which was really awesome.
Yeah, you have people working, there's candlelight, candles going all throughout. It was wonderful.
And in case you're wondering what that hum is, they actually do have the building behind us, his home, outfitted with air conditioning. And right when we were getting ready to shoot this video, that thing popped on. So also, if you guys didn't know, Daniel Boone is actually on Facebook.
He is, and you can follow him or at least our site, and he'll post some history about himself or some other historical characters, and then other events and things that we have going on at the Boone home. So it's pretty fun to follow.
So what's the
Daniel
Facebook
link?
I think it's a historic Daniel Boone home, something like that.
Yeah, we'll actually leave a link down below for you guys if you want to check it out. And if you guys are ever in the area, you might want to take a little bit of time, sidetrack over to this location, look at all the wonderful craftsmanship, all the great you know, history and everything involved with checking out the Daniel Boone home. And the reason why we sat up here to give you guys the end shot is because that is the 4-story home, which was kind of unusual back in those times. And we wanted to show you guys just how big it actually was. So I think that was pretty cool. Have you enjoyed it?
Oh, I love it. I love this stuff. It's so much fun. I learn so much every time I come.
Yeah, it's great for the kids, great for the family, and great for the homestead homies. Don't forget to check us out.
Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
And we'll see you guys on the next Field Trip Friday.
Yay, we love our Field Trip Fridays. See you next time.
Hey guys, thanks for watching our video. You might want to check out these videos.
And if you want to become a homestead homie, click the picture of us below.
We will see you tomorrow.